In what is another we told you so moment, the Republican Party, who claimed to at first respect the freedom of transgender folks, adults, to transition, are now proposing a limit to gender transition for adults. Now, look, it starts slow, but it ramps up pretty quickly. Former President Donald Trump last month had proposed banning all taxpayer funding for sex or gender transitions at any age. So it went from, banning transition, which, by the way, is not, medical transition in the fact in the form of surgeries, which do not happen for minors. Surgeries are not generally performed on minors when it comes to transition. It's mainly when it comes to medical, hormones, puberty blockers, and then mostly social transition, especially for, prepubertal children. They go through the social transition, changing their name, pronouns, dressing how they want, etc. It started there, but of course it went to, oh, now we're just going to ban it for adults. Oh, great. So now, at the same event at last month's Faith and Freedom Conference, he'd also pledged, this is Trump, to reinstate a ban on transgender men and women serving in the military, because of course. Now, Trump's currently leading in the polls, and so now he's doubling down on the anti-trans stuff, which I'm sure is going to do him very well in the polls. Well, it'll do him very well in the Republican primary, but probably not in the general election, as we have seen a huge blowout when you try to pass all these anti-trans bills. Okay, but again, it's not just Trump that is proposing these bans. In fact, you have pretty much all the Republicans running in the field today coming out in favor of banning transgender or banning transitions, right? So now, in a statement to McClatchy, D.C., the campaigns of many of the primary's leading contenders, including former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, said they support limits on transition. Now, specifically right now, they're supporting bans in the use of federal taxpayer money for gender transition surgeries for all ages. Now, again, I just told you that, teenagers don't generally get gender transition surgeries. It's incredibly rare if it happens, but generally is advised against. But they say that, they use that language anyways, so they can say, oh, look, we're protecting the children, we're protecting the children. But in reality, no, they're just using children as a shield to then go after everyone. And that's what they're doing, everyone. So now, Hutchinson said taxpayer money should not be used for transgender surgery. So what does that mean? It means using things like Medicaid, Medicare, or even if you're in the military, using government funded health care. It might even extend to subsidies for people who get subsidies for the ACA. I could see that happening because, oh, that's government money, it's government subsidies. Oh, you can't get government subsidies for health insurance and then actually use that for gender affirming care. Oh no, you can't do that. So again, this is an attack on transgender rights and autonomy. But here's more. Hutchinson said it is an individual's choice to undertake transgender surgery, and it is objectionable to many taxpayers. Taxpayers should not foot the bill. But, there's a lot of things the government does, sends money to, that I find it objectionable. I find it objectionable to, give money to oil companies in the form of subsidies, billions of dollars a year. I find that very objectionable. I find it objectionable to, continue to have to give more money to the Pentagon, having our, tax money go to buying bombs and tanks that are used overseas. I gotta have an issue with that. I find that objectionable. Do Republicans find that objectionable? Asa Hutchinson, is that objectionable to you? No. But hey, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal, right? So if I get to say that I find that stuff objectionable, giving corporate subsidies to corporations, so we don't do it anymore because I think it's objectionable. So let's not do it anymore. Okay, maybe I'll take that deal. If you can say that government money can't go towards trans surgeries, how about that for children? I'll take that deal. Number one, because it's not actually happening. No trans children are actually getting surgeries with government money. But hey, we would not on that. I'd take that deal. Okay. Now, anyway, there's more. It actually gets worse. Now, Tricia McLaughlin, a spokeswoman for Ramaswamy's campaign, told McClatchy, D.C., quote, "It's wrong to treat anorexia with a liposuction, just as it's inhumane to treat a person who suffers from gender dysphoria with genital mutilation. These are mental health illnesses that should be treated as such." Okay, so if we're talking about how Republicans treat mental illness, I'm assuming then you're just going to do nothing to help people access mental health, right? I mean, in fact, Republicans have actually been against people getting mental health treatment. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Look, I only wish Republicans would actually leave trans people alone and allow them to, get the health care and the stuff that they need. But unfortunately, Republicans are continuing to pass bills, draconian laws, against transgender people overall. And again, here's the thing, right? The treatment for gender dysphoria is social and medical transition. That's according to all the major medical associations. They might know a little bit more than, Nikki Haley's and, Ramaswamy's campaign spokesperson. I'm just saying. Literally taking away the treatment for dysphoria, which helps people live better lives, trans people, okay? Look, Washington Post KFF study, it's Kaiser Family Foundation, found recently that 78% of respondents said living as a different gender from birth has increased their satisfaction of life. This is a survey of 500 transgender people. Remember, there's only 1.6 million trans people in the United States, in the entire country. 500 of them, there was a survey, and the vast majority said, yeah, transitioning socially and medically has been good for my life. Now you might think, wow, 78%. Well, there's more. More than 4 out of 10 adults said that they're a lot more satisfied. In fact, T.C. Caldwell of Alabama told the Washington Post, quote, "Living doesn't hurt anymore. It feels good to just breathe and to be myself." But again, 78%, only 78%. Hold on. Misleading statistic. Let me show you. Let me explain why. So this isn't talking about whether they regret their transition. It's whether or not they're satisfied after transitioning. So it turns out only 78% have higher life satisfaction after transitioning. And that's because of the discrimination. So it could be a lot higher than 78%, which is already a vast majority of people saying, yes, I love that I have transitioned. I'm much happier now than I used to be. Now that I am living my truth and living my life. But again, that's a low number compared to what it could be because of the issue of discrimination. In fact, Tim McCoy, a Syracuse resident, who was in the survey, said, "You always have that fear of what's going to happen when you tell someone you're transgender, especially these days. That definitely affects one's quality of life. It's a constant stress." Trans adults reported day-to-day harassment, including at work or with a healthcare provider. About 25% of trans adults said they faced physical assault due to their gender identity. That's a quarter of them, gender expression, or sexual orientation. An estimated 6 out of 10 have faced verbal harassment for being transgender. So yeah, that's going to affect your quality of life. But when it comes to actually regretting transition, well, about 1% actually regret transitioning. Those are the desisters, so the detransitioner people. Okay, so understand how much of a minority of a minority the detransitioners are, and yet what, they get massive amounts of play in the media. Everybody's talking about, the right wing's talking about transition and detransition. They're obsessed with it, but in reality, tiny amount of people. And look, adding, by the way, to what impacts trans people's, quality of life is the Republican bills that are targeting them. Courts across the country are now debating the validity of laws restricting access to puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Arriving at different conclusions in places like Florida and Tennessee, politicians in other states like Kansas are engaged in an ongoing fight over whether driver's licenses can indicate someone has changed gender since birth. Meanwhile, Republicans in the House voted this week to block the military's health plan from covering gender transition surgeries. The bill is not expected to be approved by the Senate. Remember, that's also going after adults. But this entire thing started as a claim that we're just protecting the children. Now, we know that claim is bullshit. It's always been bullshit. It's been bullshit the whole time. Again, when you actually, the trans youth, that saves their lives. Gender transition saves lives. It reduces suicidal ideation among trans youth. But again, that's why it's been bullshit. But now we know the right wing is targeting adults. Now, many conservative activists say the transgender movement represents not just an irreversible danger to children, but a broader threat to society itself, blurring the lines between men and women in a way they find both wrong and repugnant. Mary Hassan, a senior fellow at the Conservative Ethics and Policy Center, said, "What I see with politicians is some of them are awakening to this issue. They're taking a look at it, and maybe the first thing they're willing to say is, I'm against allowing children to transition because of the way they feel. But I think they're going to be pushed to consider the question more deeply because of what we're seeing across society has far deeper ramifications." So again, right now, Republicans she's saying, well, we're more open to saying, oh, of course, children, yes, we use the children, right? But at the end of the day, we just don't like transitioning at all. We just don't think that that's correct at all. We don't think it's right at all. And we definitely want to put a stop to it. That's what they're saying. That's what they're doing. That's what the eventual plan is to shut down all trans people. I mean, one example is, and it really kind of shows the way their rhetoric continues to devolve towards trans people. Back in May, Nikki Haley went after Dylan Mulvaney, the woman who received a one can with her face on it, and then the right wing just went completely nuts over. He said this: "Make no mistake, that is a guy dressed up as a girl making fun of women. Women don't act like that." So this is their attitudes towards transgender people, towards adults. They're making fun of us. No, they're not. Haley, in an interview with the Dispatch, did say that she supported letting transgender people in the armed services serve openly, and that they should have every freedom and every equality as anybody else. But other Republicans, again, are going after adult transition, trying to shut down access to gender-affirming care for transgender adults. Other candidates, again, while they're mainly focused on trans kids right now, they have let it slip that they're going after adults. Michael Knowles basically admitted it. Okay, Michael Knowles said he wants to erase transgenderism from the country, which is not a thing, transgenderism. But basically, just replace that word with trans people, and that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants people who are transgender, who identify, to be erased. That is the end goal here. At the end of the day, they do not respect trans people's freedoms. They want them gone, eradicated, eliminated. That has always been the end goal. And they will continue to, as far as they can stretch it, use children as their shield and their sword to go after the entire trans community. And when they're done with them, they'll go after the rest of the LGBTQ community. Because that's who they are.